The reason you feel frustrated as a language learner is because the discomfort of studying and of putting effort in is worse. It basically outweighs the progress you're making. So what I mean by that is when you're doing things to learn a language, you're obviously putting in effort, you're investing time. You feel as if the effort you're investing basically outweighs the amount of progress you're making, and that's what causes frustration. So there probably have been times where you have felt the opposite. You felt that you're making a lot of progress, and during these periods, you've probably felt extremely motivated, and you've actually enjoyed language learning, and you've studied a lot more, and you've actually made a lot more progress. And I think there are two key components of that you can understand to stop feeling frustrated as a language learner. So if you can make actual progress and you can perceive the progress you're making, it's very easy to not feel frustrated. So right now, either or you could be doing both of these things. You're not making enough progress, or you are making progress, but you don't think you are. And whichever one of these things it is currently causing you frustration, and you don't you don't feel as if you're making enough progress. So the first thing, making actual language learning progress, the way we ensure that we are actually making progress in a foreign language is we're consistently doing enough high ROI tasks to make ourselves better at the language. So what I mean by sorry, I'm having a bit of a scrambled brain day. What I mean by ROI is return on investment. And I've mentioned this before. Every task you could possibly do, even tasks that are completely useless, have some kind of return on investment. So if you are doing flashcards, or you're talking to someone in a foreign language, or you're practicing listening or reading in a foreign language, like I've got a book next to me right now, that task has the ROI of hopefully making you better in the foreign language. If you're doing something completely useless like watching Netflix, the ROI is you feel kind of comfortable for while it's going, and then afterwards you have literally nothing. So what we need to be doing is enough tasks with ROI in the language we're learning to fuel growth. You'll find some people are completely inconsistent and they don't actually do enough stuff to lock new words into their memory in the foreign language. And so what happens is they don't actually really make any progress, and that causes frustration. So that's the first thing. A key way to make sure that you are doing that you are doing enough stuff to get better at the foreign language is to grab a notebook. It can be your language learning notebook, which you should already have. Get the pen right at the top of one of the blank pages, problem solving to-do list, and then whenever you have any kind of problem, which you're going to write down right now, you write these on the page. So if you encountered that if you can't, what's a random problem that you could have? Sorry, I'm really bad at, should probably write down an example of a problem because I can't think of stuff off the top of my head. If your problem is you can't understand converting from singular to plural, or you can't understand verb conjugation, or you can't understand case, or anything like that, inflection, you just write down the problem on that page. And if you don't know what to do, you can go back to that page and cross things off as you learn them. So you basically always have something to do. And the second part of making language learning progress is to set weekly goals. So you can actually look at the page of problems you might have, and you can set one of them as your weekly goal. So for me, for example, I'm a lot better now, but Russian, the language I'm learning, is quite complicated when it comes to inflection. Inflection basically means words changing for various reasons. I'm not going to go into Russian grammar, but I'll go a little bit into Russian grammar just really quick. Basically, nouns and adjectives change depending on the case they're in, and the case they're in is based on what they're doing in the sentence, whether it's the thing doing the verb or receiving the verb, a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to go in depth in it, but it can be quite complicated. So I've been doing some drills and practice and actually understanding the rules behind that. And so I'm a little bit better on the fly, and like looking at stuff, understanding what case it's in, how to convert it between cases, etc. But that was a big problem for me, and so I wrote it down and I made it my goal for last week, and I made a lot of progress in it. So that's kind of an example of what you can do to ensure that you are making progress. If you find that you're doing both of those things, which I doubt anyone watching this is, and you're still not making progress, it's probably a bit of a problem. If you want to jump on call with me, you can definitely add me on Discord, and I'm happy to jump on call with anyone and help them with language learning problems so that they can make progress. But yeah, the second part is perception. So even if you are making actual progress, it's very easy to not be aware of how much progress you've made in the foreign language, or to be ungrateful. And this can have the side effect of making you feel as if you're wasting your time, which causes frustration, as we know. So the way I've found to be aware of what you're doing is to completely forget instant gratification. Instant gratification is kind of, it's like what you get out of doing a task immediately. So obviously the tasks that are going to be the best for instant gratification are completely useless things like junk food, Netflix, etc., where it feels good straight away, but it has absolutely no value. When you're language learning, a lot of time there isn't any instant gratification because you do the task and you have to get better in the future, and it's not particularly pleasurable right now, especially when you would rather procrastinate and not do anything. So what I want you to do is completely forget about comfort and instant gratification, and in your brain optimize for delayed gratification and optimize for making progress. I've already made a video on this, which I'll have pop up on the screen and linked in the description, but I'd highly recommend you check that out as well if you haven't watched it yet. But 2 other tips I would give you for perception is 1, to double handle content. And what I mean by that, by double handle, is say you're doing flashcards, for example, on a particular topic. Immediately after you finish doing the flashcards, you can grab your notebook and write out as many words as you want from memory, or you could write out a short story with the words. Or another example might be if you're reading a book, you can record yourself reading and then listen back to it. That's what I mean by double handle. Basically, take something in a foreign language that you're doing to help you be better in the foreign language, and then kind of do the same thing but using a different medium. So you can go between the 4 main ways of language learning of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. You can just take one of them and put it into another one. So say you're listening to a podcast, you could then repeat a bunch of the things, or you could write the stuff down, or if you're reading a book, you could, as I just said, say it and record yourself. Just do something like that to double handle the language learning content, and you'll find that actually does help you lock it into your brain because you're exposing yourself to that information that you've never seen before in a bunch of different ways, and that helps teach your brain that these things are important and it forms those connections. The second tip I would give you for perception is to have more faith in the process. So a lot of the time you're doing stuff to learn a foreign language, particularly if this is your second language, so your first non-native language. And because you've never done it before, you kind of have to just hope that it works and hope that these things are actually helping you. But it's very easy to get a fixed mindset and fall into the trap of thinking, I'm just wasting my time, this is completely useless. And the truth is that it's not completely useless, but I understand why you're saying that because you've never actually seen the value in it before. It's kind of like, imagine you'd gone to the gym for years and you were already really strong. You're never really going to be worrying, is this a waste of time? Because you've already gotten really strong. Compared to the person who's never been to the gym before, they kind of had that lingering thought when they're lifting weights, etc., that it might be a bit of a waste of time, it might not actually work. So you can kind of see what I mean, right? Once you've actually done it before, it's easy to think, okay, this actually does work. So what I want you to do is surround yourself with role models that have actually done the thing that you're not sure if it works. So if you're watching my videos, for example, I talk about a bunch of different language learning methods and my language learning journey. And if you continue watching content, I'm not saying you have to watch every single one of my videos, but if you continue watching content like that, you're actually surrounding yourself with people who are confirming that the stuff that you're doing does actually work. And I think that's really good, particularly when a lot of the time people surround themselves with, role models on social media who are really good at stuff, but they don't actually talk about how they achieve those skills. And so you kind of think either they're lying or they've got some secret and what I'm doing isn't actually working. And that's not true. So I would recommend you try and surround yourself with more of this low dopamine content that is actually useful for achieving your goals, rather than watching somebody's highlight reel where they've lied about a bunch of stuff and they're actually putting a lot more effort than you might think they did. But yeah, that is basically my 2 tips for perception and being able to see the value in what you're doing. My final tip is just to remember the first thing I said in this video, which is discomfort and frustration is when the effort you're putting in seems to outweigh what you're getting out of it. And then that basically means either you have a problem, you're not actually learning a language as fast as possible, in which case I'd recommend you check out my course that I've got linked below. You don't have to, but you can just stick to free stuff if you want. But I would highly recommend it because I do call every single person in it and I make sure they are actually making language learning progress. So if you do want to check that out, you can. Otherwise, just make sure that you are actually doing things that are useful. Constantly watch videos on how to improve language learning and watch videos from native speakers with the language you're learning so that they can teach you new stuff. And I'd also recommend journaling as well as a bonus tip, just to journal once a week on what you did the last week. I personally do it on Sunday and journal about the things that didn't really go so well and what you could improve upon, and you'd be surprised what you come up with. But guys, that is the video. Thanks for watching and have a good one.